one of the issues, and it still is an issue in Lebanon, is what do the history books say? Because everybody has a different identity and a different perspective on history. And so you see natural heroes like Fakhruddin, who are claimed by both the Christians and the Druze as being their own. And you see people like Bashir Shahab, the most modernizing prince in Lebanon's history. And there's a huge debate over what was his actual religious identity. Was he Druze? Was he Christian? Was he Sunni? When did the Shia come? That's a huge point of historic friction. And so you see that there is this war of narratives that's constantly playing out in everything. And you see it today.
The UK today, yes.
And the UK today. The Windrush generation built Britain. The NHS is built on immigrants.
Yes. Oh, the NHS wouldn't function unless 50,000 people turn up in a small boat. That kind of stuff.
Exactly. So you see this war of narratives, which is a war of identities, which comes from the fact that you have different ancestors and different religions.
Yes.
And this diversity keeps the state weak, because the Muslims would never want a very strong Lebanese army that is Christian-led, which meant that the same Lebanese army can't enforce the law against the Palestinians. And the Palestinians, being Marxist revolutionaries, were also criminal. So they were involved in kidnapping, they were involved in rape, they were involved in murder. They would just set up checkpoints and say, well, it's to protect the revolution. Why are you protecting the revolution in Beirut? You're supposed to be fighting on the border.
Well, and how would that work? So these checkpoints started appearing when?
So started appearing in the 60s.
Because at least we haven't got to that.
Started appearing in the 60s. Well, when you have these guys saying that we're the Muslim Defense League showing up after the Southport riots.
Yes.
When you have the Sharia patrols walking around central London, Whitechapel, in 2012. When you see police officers saying to a mob of Muslims, take your weapons and put them back in the mosque.
Yes, I suppose we do have bits of this already, yeah.
So you have these elements here.
But so how would that work? So it's 1960 something.
They just
and you're a
get
Christian
some guns
Lebanese family, and you're driving through Beirut and you come to a checkpoint. What happens?
Give me your ID. We want to search your car. And the implication is we'll extract a bribe.
Right.
Or they could just kidnap someone. Or there could, like, the both sons of the most senior Christian politician in Lebanon got taken by these checkpoints at some point. And this would end up getting involved in political negotiations. Well, we're holding two people. We want you to do this and that.
Could you see? So when things start to escalate in the UK, that could be one of the first ways it goes.
Of course,
is checkpoints.
Because the first thing that you're meant to do is to secure your own neighborhood.
Okay.
And so there's a logic to it. If you have this as a base of power, you set it up properly.
Okay.
And
we identify what the Muslim areas are. We're going to put checkpoints up more overtly than they're already doing with the Sharia patrols and so on.
So the Sharia patrols are thankfully not happening now, but they are releasing the guy who was responsible for 7/7.
Yes.
And you know he's going to have ideas, and you know he's going to have expanded his network by being in prison for so long. And you know that this is going to have boosted his street cred. And unless MI5 properly turned him and decided to work in the interest of the British public, which is another big assumption, for once, then you have a huge problem with these people.
So what I find interesting about that is the moment you get to checkpoints or something like it, anyone who is not of that group, I mean, that is as clear a signal as you can possibly get out.
Yes.
And you then start to get this very marked sorting process.
Precisely.
Where areas that were previously predominantly Muslim become overwhelmingly or entirely Muslim because people flee them.
And you already have that in parts of Birmingham, in Leicester, where the Hindus and the Muslims don't live in the same neighborhoods, in London, where you have some boroughs with maybe 10%, 15% white British.
But you still have the 15%. If I can imagine if checkpoints arrived, they would do whatever it took to get out.
Yes. But in Lebanon, to be completely fair to the Muslims, West Beirut, which ended up being run by the Muslims, was more diverse than the Christian parts.
Right.
But that was also because Christians could remain neutral in a conflict, whereas Muslims never could.
Right.
So that's often used as a sort of, oh, you're more intolerant.
What was the Jewish population like in Lebanon?
At that time, maybe several thousand.
Okay.
I mean, after 1967, there were big riots in Beirut and big protests in Beirut, and more Jews fled.
Right.
But the synagogue, I believed, was properly bombed in 1982 by an Israeli barge when they invaded Beirut.
Okay.
I think it's called can't remember the name of the synagogue, but it was properly bombed by the Israelis.
So Lebanon is fractured, and it's
Very.
got a lot of the same political tensions with Islam and the rest of them as we have currently in the UK.
Yes.
But nevertheless, still prosperous, doing business, lots going on.
Yes.
Lots of media and finance. Again, exactly like the UK is today.
Yes.
What was the thing that pushed it over the edge in the early 70s?
It was an accumulation. So there would be.
So you're not going to point to a thing. You're not going to say, okay,
So
the
the
Lebanese
official
transferred man
start.
got assassinated. It was just accumulation.
The official start was a massacre on 13 April, whereby there had been an assassination attempt against a Christian leader. 2 of his bodyguards were killed. And then a Palestinian bus passed through that area, which was heavily Christian. And it had fidaiyin and civilians, so fighters and civilians. And the Christians in that neighborhood just opened fire at the bus
Oh, okay.
and killed 30 people.
Okay, had this been a thing until, because this is the thing that the British government is currently absolutely bricking itself about.
Yes.
It doesn't mind Muslim violence.
No.
I mean, it doesn't like it.
Which is what the Lebanese army was forced to accept, a tolerance of Palestinian violence.
Yes, and that's exactly the same here in the UK.
Yes.
A certain amount of Muslim violence, we're just going to say it's part and parcel of living in a big city.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to accept it. It's just a thing that happens.
Mm-hmm.
But the British government is absolutely shitting itself that there is going to be any sort of nativist pushback.
Which is why
and if a white guy puts up stickers,
yes,
even
Sam
mildly
Melia.
criticising this arrangement, 2 years in jail.
yes, yes.
And that was what
They're
triggered
terrified because of that. Because so what happened? What happened was that there were repeated incidents of abuse of the Christians, killings of Christians, killings of random people, shootings, kidnappings, etc.
And it was largely unanswered, was it?
And it was largely unanswered. And then at some point, the president at the time says to the leading Christian leaders, listen, because of what is happening in the broader Middle East, because politics in Lebanon was intrinsically tied to Arab politics, because Lebanese Muslim leaders were, in fact, following other Muslim leaders in the region.
Yes.
They were not. They did not.
Yeah.
They saw them as having a higher authority than
They were following their
the
lead
Lebanese
rather than
president.
setting their own agenda.
Exactly. Exactly. Because they have a different identity. And they identified with people who, by the laws of a nation state, would be considered foreign. A huge part of the problem is that the nation state model was imposed on the Middle East.
Okay. But the Christian frustration and resentment have been building up and building up
Exactly.
and building up. And then
And then
finally
the president
a group of
in
them
the
said, we've had
70s
enough. And that's when they attacked the bus.
Exactly. So in the 70s, the president says to the Christian leaders, I've lost control and I can no longer deploy the army to police the Palestinians. You have to see what you can do.
And they did.
And at that point, the Christians began getting armed and training. And the Lebanese army, through its officers, began allowing the Christian militias to take weapons that were for the Lebanese army and to distribute them. And the different political organizations that represented the Christians, the political parties that represented the Christians, started setting up programs to buy weapons and to buy personal arms and to distribute them. And they did so at a profit so that they could then use that profit to buy even more weapons. So I'd go around the neighborhood if I was a member of these parties, and say, look, every household needs to buy one gun. And for every 2 or 3 guns sold, I'd make enough money to buy a fourth. That would go to the fully organized militia as opposed to the popular militia.
Right.
And that was a consequence of the state losing the ability to enforce the law. So this is how far in the game we are. And the reason they crack down so heavily on somebody like Sam Melia, who puts up stickers, or on the Southport protesters, or on Lucy Connolly, or on whoever, is because they know that when there is an actual retaliation to an atrocity by the native population, whose anger has been building up gradually over years and years, there is going to be a complete loss of control, because the Palestinians felt aggrieved that there had been a massacre.
Yeah.
And they started fighting as well. And so the starting wars, the starting conflicts, the starting battles of the Lebanese Civil War were mainly about clearing Palestinian camps from the entrances of Christian areas. So the 2 big battles were Tel el-Zatar and Karantina, which are in Christian areas, Palestinian camps in Christian areas, on the edges of Beirut. And Tel el-Zatar at the entrance of the Matan region, like a key part of the Christian heartland. And when the battle started in 75, 76, it was discovered that this entire area had been dug through with tunnels.
Oh, right.
And that the Palestinians had in fact been preparing for a fight for much longer than people knew, for a domestic fight in Lebanon.
They do seem like a very good tunneling people, the Palestinians. They like their tunneling. And what did it look like these tunnels were set up to do? To launch attacks on the Christian population there?
To basically repel the army and then defeat the army. To basically repel any armed force that tried to take them.
So at this point, it's beyond deniability that the Lebanese state has lost control.
Yes.
And that these people really are enemies who want us dead.
They want you subjugated.
Right.
So Islam isn't always after killing you completely, unlike the leftists, who are more violent than Muslims. And the regular comeuppance of leftists when they ally with the Islamists is that they are the first to get shot.
Yes.
Which is a sort of divine justice being inflicted on them.
Sweet irony there, yeah.
Yes. Which happened in Iran, which, keeps on happening. The idea was that for the Muslims, the idea was that we are going to completely break the Christians and stop them from objecting to using Lebanon as a launchpad for attacks against Israel. Something which no Muslim state would have accepted. And if Lebanon were to be fully governed by Muslims tomorrow morning, the first thing that they would do is to consolidate control over weapons.
Yes.
If you would like to see the full version of this premium video, please head over to lotuseaters.com and subscribe to gain full access to all of our premium content.